Hey everybody, thank you so much for sticking in and watching some of these interviews I've got at the Louisiana State Capitol in Rotunda. With me in this interview is State Representative Kyle Green. He's on the West Bank, Jefferson Parish. Representative Green, thank you so much for being on there. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Good
You
to
know,
be here.
ever since I first met you, we had some time out on the dock, there at Signet Landing in West.
Perfect day.
Yeah, it was a perfect day. I loved sitting with you because a lot of people are scared of the reps. They're like, well, they don't know what they're doing. They don't know who they are, or they wonder what they're doing. And I can honestly say that after sitting with you for some time, I got to see how real you are and how genuinely concerned you are about people, especially in your district. Yeah, and so you've got a few bills, but we're going to talk about two of them, I think, because the other ones I think have kind of gone on in silence, we'll say. And then people can go to the legislative site and see the other ones. But you've got 228, right?
Correct.
That is one, and that one eliminates the death penalty.
Yes, that was a big deal.
That is a big deal. Katrina Jackson tried to do that last year, right?
She did.
Okay.
And look, we brought it up again this year. It was mentioned in the governor's state of speech where he put 228 into his package, legislative package. We brought it up for a vote in the Committee on Criminal Justice, Administration of Criminal Justice, and unfortunately, we didn't get enough votes to move it to the next step in the process. But we heard some good testimony on both sides as to, one, if you're supportive of the death penalty, why it should stay. If you're against it, why we should repeal it. And it was a good debate, but unfortunately this year we weren't on the prevailing side.
One of my common themes for not only this session, but something I've adopted as a theme for future interviews I do is, what I found in the legislative process, that sometimes having the conversation is as important, if not more important, than actually getting the legislation passed. Granted, in this case, you're passionate about it and want to get it passed,
That's correct.
but the reality is that maybe people aren't ready for it, but the conversation being had, which you did, bring some attention to maybe other needs in our state, which I think can be just important. It's like Huval's bill, the hands-free bill
Right.
that nobody likes the hands-free bill, but he's bringing attention to talk, be responsible.
And look, that's a good point because, if you keep on bringing it, you keep on making your argument, sometimes people who weren't with you the first time, they'll be with you the second time. And for me personally, I was one of those individuals. I wasn't with him and didn't vote for it the first time he brought it. But then the next year, he made a compelling argument, and I voted for it, and I've been voting for it ever since.
And not only that, but like in the case of the death penalty bill, we may never see the end of it. Maybe we do, but either way, maybe in the process, you're able to help some people or delay some people that were on death row that may have, been able to have justice in other ways. Maybe, in other words, there's some people who are innocent.
That was the biggest reason that I'm bringing it because, we've shown in Louisiana that we get it wrong more times than any other place in the country. We've had over almost 11 exonerations since 1976. That equals to about 1 per 2.5 executions. One person's innocent per 2.5 executions that we've had. That's pretty high.
33%, 40% almost.
That's pretty high. And so, the death penalty to me is a penalty that if administered is irreversible if you later are found out to be innocent of the crime that you committed. There are much better alternatives to punish a person than to take a person's life. So for me, it just wasn't something that I felt comfortable with, at least not trying to repeal.
In the process, what percentage of people are on death row but for their whole natural lives? In other words, if we're only executing a small percentage of people who are actually on death row, is it worth it to execute that small percentage, or is it worth it just to keep them in jail for the rest of their lives?
Well, we haven't executed anybody in Louisiana since 2010, and that person volunteered. He waived all of his legal delays, all of legal rights that were afforded to him to say, just execute me, and we did. Before him, the last time we executed someone was in 2002. And before that person, 2020. So since 2000, we've executed only 3 people, and one of those 3 people volunteered to be executed. So it's something we're not doing. We're not going to be doing in the future because we can't get the drugs to administer the death penalty. So what good does it do to the tax-paying citizen for us to pay the amount of money that we pay to administer the capital punishment in Louisiana when we're not executing anybody. And we know we have people, based on prior statistics, that the people who are on death row right now, there's got to be at least 1 or 2 people who are innocent of the crime that they committed. I think the money that we're spending could be spent better elsewhere.
Okay, good point. And like I said, just having this conversation has opened my eyes a little bit, on some things. You've got, is it 282 is the next one you want to talk about? That one is about school food programs, requires free school breakfast and lunch for certain students. I thought they already had that.
No, so right now we have 3 categories of lunch and breakfast. Basically, everyone pays. Up to a certain income threshold, you get reduced lunch. And the next income threshold, you get free lunch. So what we're doing is everyone who's currently receiving reduced lunch, we're going to move them into the category of receiving free lunch. And so the theory behind that is, we are a very poor state. And what we know is that many kids sometimes don't get a good meal. In some cases, the best meal that they'll get all day is lunch from school. And I want to make sure that every child, has the ability to get a good lunch, a good meal at school. So we're basically eliminating the reduced lunch category. And so ensuring that all kids are able to get, free lunch and free breakfast.
It's interesting because now you're offering 2 meals, and not the reduced factor, which I can see could be just a more of a logistical, but more of a nightmare in the paperwork and trying to figure out who gets reduced, who gets full, and it's probably such a thin line that you might as well give them free lunch based on all the record keeping that is costing money anyway.
And the cost of it is really, small. You would think that it would be exorbitant, but really it's about $260,000 to administer that program on a per year basis. That was a first step. In politics, sometimes you got to start on an incremental approach. And so next year we look forward to making it universal to where all children, regardless of what your income level is, if you go to school, you get free lunch and free breakfast at school.
So now let's go to the budget, because today's the big budget day. They voted on the HCR 3, if that's the correct way to say it.
Yes.
That allowed them to bust the cap, and I don't mean that in a negative way, because everybody's talking about busting the cap.
Right.
And so people say, hey, they mean bust the cap in a positive way. Somebody's saying bust the cap in a negative way. But no matter how you look at it, there's representatives that feel that we needed to do it to make investments in the state. Agree or disagree with busting the cap or raising the spending limit, what do you feel the benefit is, or how do you feel about it?
I was one of those people who look at busting the cap in a positive way because I was one of the 85 people who voted for it. Now, if you were one of the 19 on the House side who voted against it, well, then you probably felt it was a negative. But we have so much money that it would be shame on us to not spend it in a manner that would be best utilized for the benefit of our citizens. When you talk about making record investments in infrastructure, with roads and our bridges and our water sector program, hoping to provide increased pay for teachers, supplemental pay for our first responders, those things, hit right at home to everyday citizens, and we run the risk of losing that money later down the road if we don't make down payments on some of the infrastructure projects. Go tell the people in Lake Charles that they don't deserve a bridge. The people here in Baton Rouge, who you're here every day, and you see the traffic.
Yeah.
Because we don't have a bridge.
Exactly.
Those things are important because, you talk about, spending more time in traffic than what you should spend because we haven't made the investments. So,
or always say, going down the road, you're bumping, and.
So for me, it was an easy vote to vote for. I'm happy that 84 of my other House colleagues saw it the same way I did, and I look forward to seeing what the budget's going to look like in the conference report.
I hope you're going to get that today. Of course.
Yeah, we have to get it before 6 o'clock.